Right now, I'm filled with intense anger, to the extent that I'm trembling. If my partner, Sandy, were to walk into the room, I'd rather not say what might happen. I've just finished a project here in Denver, and I must say, I'm relieved to be away from the chaotic situation back home. I've had a strong gut feeling that my wife, Sandy, has been involved with someone else, and tonight, my suspicions were confirmed. It doesn't matter how long it has been going on, our marriage is practically lifeless. It's ironic how these things catch you off guard, even after being together for 8 years initially. I thought about confronting them, but what's the point? It's evident that my marriage is over, and besides, the guy she's with could easily overpower me. So here I am, feeling isolated. Only someone who has experienced this kind of pain can truly understand. I'm not interested in the typical comforting lines like "I understand what you're going through" or offers to talk about it. For now, I'm keeping this to myself. I need to figure out my next steps, but first I need to clear my head, and that won't be a quick process. The thought of being intimate with my wife again is repulsive, especially with images of her with him. Thankfully, their disrespect didn't extend to our marital bed, they used hotels. With a notepad ready, I'm trying to decide on my next course of action. If Sandy had been the stereotypical bombshell, maybe I could have anticipated or at least been on the lookout for clues. But she's not the tall, long-haired, towering beauty type like the cliché. That's not to say Sandy isn't attractive. She's around 56, with short brown hair and a fit body. She may not turn heads dramatically, but she's certainly not lacking appeal. Compared to his wife, Sandy would barely score a 5. So the question is, why would he be interested in my wife? Probably just because he can. Sandy started working at Logan Industries about 2 years ago, right after our son Danny was born. We had enough to get by with my salary, but she desired the lifestyle our friends enjoyed. "Sandy, if I work, it'll ease some financial stress off you, and you won't need to put in so much overtime. It'd be great to have you around more," she argued. Her parents even offered to babysit Danny so she could work, at least part-time. She had a point, but I still believed Danny needed her at home for a bit longer. Little did I know she was already searching for job opportunities. It was at a charity auction where or rather I should say, I encountered Richard Logan. My boss handed his tickets to us, admitting his disdain for such events. I saw it as a chance for a pleasant night out with my wife. When Richard entered the room with his wife, everyone's attention was on them. He was tall, attractive, and wealthy, which gave him a sort of celebrity status. He was charming, and it seemed like he had the admiration of every woman, including my wife. "That's Richard Logan and his wife, Connie," my wife whispered to me. "He owns 3 companies around here, and his wife used to be a fashion model. The dress she's wearing tonight probably costs more than my entire wardrobe," she observed quietly. "But they're likely not as happy as we are." I responded by giving my wife a kiss on the cheek, saying, "Yeah, wouldn't it be nice to have that kind of money, even just for a while?" She pondered on it, and later that evening, we somehow ended up in a conversation with Richard and Connie. I can't recall how we got to talking about our jobs or Sandy's interest in returning to work, but it stuck in my mind. Weeks later, Sandy brought it up again. Richard really flaunted his wealth that night by winning the top 5 auction items. When I called him out for showing off, my wife quickly corrected me, claiming he was doing it all for charity. I didn't buy it. It was clear he wanted everyone to see that he could do whatever he pleased. It was obvious that he enjoyed being the center of attention. I couldn't help but notice that his wife seemed to be watching him closely, as well as keeping an eye on all the attractive women there. It seemed like she didn't fully trust him. Nevertheless, 3 weeks later, I came home to find out that Sandy had landed a part-time job at none other than Logan Industries in a newly established department. She was excited and said it was likely to become a full-time role in 6 months. "Isn't it wonderful?" she said, clearly thrilled. I really wanted to say, "Heck no," but I didn't want to dampen her excitement, so I put on a brave face, smiled, and told her I was proud. "How did you find out about the job?" I asked. "My friend Debbie works there, and Richard asked her if she knew anyone who was job hunting. She mentioned me, and I sent in my resume. I didn't want to tell you until it was official. I had my interview last week and got the job offer the next day." "Isn't that great?" she repeated, bubbling with excitement. "So you'll be working directly with Richard?" I pressed. "Yes, We're launching a new department focused on managing the charitable activities of his businesses. It might not seem like much, but I'll be evaluating all the charity requests they receive and helping decide which ones they'll support. It's a big responsibility, she explained. I'm sure you're up for it, love, I reassured her. How about we go out for dinner to celebrate? I suggested, acknowledging that we were tight on funds, but optimistic about our financial future. And that's how it all began. Soon, it was a constant talk about Mr. Logan or Richard and his greatness, which almost made me sick. Occasionally, she mentioned needing to accompany him on day trips to assess different companies or sites, but they never stayed out overnight. Considering our son, Danny, Steve, I need to be away next Tuesday night, she mentioned during dinner. Another week, Richard is considering a donation for a new wing at a small hospital in Alabama. We'll visit the hospital and then dine with their board. I'll be back by Wednesday to pick up Danny from my mother's, she explained. Why not fly back right after dinner? I assume you're using his private jet? I asked. I inquired about Mr. Logan's preference to delay the visit, suggesting that we might have additional matters to address the following morning. She responded, assuring me that it was only for one night, accompanied by a reassuring smile. Although I wasn't entirely comfortable with the situation, I trusted my wife. It seemed unlikely that Richard would make any advances towards Sandy, considering his own situation at home. I wished her a fun trip and told her I would see her on Wednesday. Half-jokingly, I mentioned needing extra affection on Monday to make up for her absence on Tuesday. True to form, she ensured that Monday was memorable, and upon her return on Wednesday, she made sure to satisfy my needs. I believed our relationship and intimate life were strong, or at least that's what I thought at the time. As life progressed, we experienced a bit more financial freedom. However, Sandy's out-of-town trips became more frequent as the holidays approached. It dawned on me that I hadn't mentioned my job, which turned out to be quite relevant to the unfolding events. I work for a firm specialized in testing security systems and computer firewalls, making us experts in assessing vulnerability to hackers. With my background in accounting and computers, I belong to the team that focuses on banking clients. Our work often involves board members requesting us to attempt breaches or disruptions within their systems to test their security. We delve into their computer systems, targeting specific accounts to simulate white-collar crimes. Approximately 65% of the time, we manage to breach their defenses, often leading the banks to hire us to resolve the vulnerabilities we exploited. The highlight of my career occurred about 4 months ago when I used a fabricated Panamanian passport to open an account at a Bank of America branch. The bank president personally showed me around, boasting about the security measures in place. As I hinted at a substantial $2 million deposit, he assured me with overwhelming confidence about the bank's impregnable security, presenting it as a fortress against any breaches. This assurance was like waving a red flag in front of a bull for me. I thrive on such challenges. I gathered all the necessary information for fund transfers, setting the stage for the upcoming action. My partner Kenny and I, acting like digital ninjas, penetrated their system and skillfully shuffled the financial deck. Within just 2 days, we siphoned funds from 4 unsuspecting accounts, redirecting them to the one I had established under a fictitious company name. And once the deed was done, I provided a thorough briefing to the bank's contact, who had commissioned the security test. With the precision of a skilled storyteller, I detailed the ins and outs of our digital heist, outlining the twists and turns of the plot. This exploit wasn't just a job well done. It served as a testament to our expertise and a stark reminder of the digital vulnerabilities that even the most fortified institutions face. Unsurprisingly, they were highly impressed with our work and immediately hired us to address the security issues. The bank's president wasn't particularly pleased with the situation, but he managed to retain his position. That's my job, and I excel at it. Over the past 6 years, I've assumed approximately 8 different identities, complete with meticulously crafted documents that are virtually indistinguishable from the real thing. To most people, these forged documents would prove exceedingly useful. Soon, just before Christmas, armed with a shopping list and a nice bonus in my pocket, I decided to indulge a little by purchasing gifts. I bought a new iPod for my wife and spontaneously stopped by Victoria's Secret to select something special, claiming it was for her, but also a treat for myself. With the assistance of the staff, I chose a couple of provocative outfits and, laden with gifts, made my way home. Since Sandy was at work, I managed to wrap most of the presents and hid them around the house. Sandy had returned home early that morning from a trip with Richard and hadn't even unpacked her suitcase yet. I decided to lend a hand by tidying up her belongings. As I emptied the suitcase onto the bed and began sorting through its contents, I stumbled upon a piece of lingerie that caught my attention. It was a vivid red, lace-trimmed crotchless panty set that I definitely would have remembered if I had seen it before. The most unsettling part was discovering the panties in a used condition, clearly indicating they had been recently worn. Other than that, there was nothing else suspicious in her suitcase, so I repacked everything and zipped it up. This lingerie, however, served as undeniable proof. I had a strong sense of who was involved, but the motive behind Sandy's actions puzzled me. Our life together was more than satisfactory, yet it appeared that Sandy desired something more. That marked the beginning of the end for us. If I hadn't decided to be helpful, or if Sandy had attended to her belongings herself, she might have continued deceiving me, leaving me completely oblivious. That evening, despite Sandy's attempts at intimacy, I couldn't bring myself to respond to her advances. I simply told her that I was too preoccupied to be interested. However, I knew that I needed more solid evidence than just a revealing piece of lingerie to take action against Mr. Logan. Given my line of work, I reached out to a colleague who had previously assisted our firm. I explained that I would be away on a project and asked him to keep an eye on Sandy, aiming to track her movements and company. "Bob, I just need to know where she's going and who she's with," I said. While I was convinced of her infidelity, I required concrete evidence to confront the situation. "Man, Steve, that's tough to hear, but don't worry. If there's anything to uncover, I'll find it," he assured me. Together, we equipped the house, her vehicle, and even her purse with surveillance listening devices. "Sandy, I'll only be away for a couple of nights at most. I want to wrap up this project before Christmas so we can spend the entire holiday together," I explained to her. "Plus, you'll have a chance to pick out my Christmas gift while I'm gone. Make sure it's something special, considering all the time you've spent away this year." I attempted to provoke a response, but she met my gaze in silence. On Wednesday, I boarded my flight to Denver and signaled Bob to commence his surveillance. Kenny had already arrived, and by 6:30 p.m., we had completed our assigned tasks. "Let's go out for a couple of beers and grab some dinner," I suggested to Steve. "There's an excellent seafood place just a few blocks from our hotel, and the waitstaff is quite attractive. I'll be ready in 20 minutes. Just pick me up outside," he replied. I called Sandy to inform her that I would be going out for dinner and planned to turn in early, hoping to catch her before she got busy. "What's your plan for tonight?" I asked. "I'm looking forward to a relaxing bath after putting Danny to bed. Then I'll probably read for a bit," she responded. "Love you," she added before hanging up. However, I didn't reciprocate her affection. Her actions had extinguished any feelings of love I had for her. Dinner turned out to be enjoyable, and the waitstaff was indeed attractive, just as Ken had mentioned. After a final drink at the hotel bar, I retired to my room, noticing a voicemail waiting for me. It was a brief message urging me to call back. "Steve, your cell was off," Bob began as soon as I called. I intentionally turned it off. "I wanted to enjoy one last uninterrupted meal before getting your update." "So, what happened?" I pressed. He informed me that Sandy had arranged for a babysitter, and after dinner, she and Richard Logan had gone to room 312 at the Ramada Inn. Although he couldn't capture photos from inside, he had managed to take pictures of them entering and promised to snap more as they left. He also mentioned capturing some audio, but doubted I would want to hear it. He booked the room for just one night, so I'll keep an eye on them from your place tomorrow. "Don't worry, Steve. You won't have to pay for this," he said. Muttering to myself, I thought, she's going to regret ever getting involved with him. I sat in my room, plotting my next steps. Simply divorcing Sandy seemed too straightforward. I wanted to make a deep impact, crafting a Christmas she would never forget, albeit for all the wrong reasons. By Thursday, I had outlined a plan, mostly executable on the 23rd due to holiday closures. Equipped with a fake passport and my son's birth certificate, I booked flights under an assumed identity, deliberately selecting a complex route to obscure our destination. Holiday travel is often chaotic, providing ample opportunity to blend in as everyone rushes to finalize their plans. To avoid leaving a digital trail, I obtained a cash advance on my credit card. I also sold our CDs and emptied our safe deposit box. I gathered all the cash we had since I planned to travel light with only a few outfits. I would need the cash to purchase clothes once we reached our destination. The final part of my plan took 3 days. Logan Industries conducted business with 2 local banks, including one where I had an account. My objective was to infiltrate the bank's mainframe, access Logan's account, and transfer those funds to our joint savings account. It may sound easy, but it wasn't. I had to rely on Kenny's expertise to minimize involving others and avoid implicating anyone else if issues arose. I decided to conduct a trial run before taking any real action. Although we had experience with similar operations, each bank's system presented unique challenges that required a tailored approach. The initial attempt was blocked by the bank's firewall, stopping me in my tracks. However, with Kenny's advice the next day, I successfully breached the system and spent a couple of hours navigating through the accounts to gather the necessary information. My goal was to initiate the first transfer from Logan's account to mine on the late evening of Friday, December 24th, and then promptly move the funds to one of 8 international accounts. Timing was crucial. During the final week, I kept things quiet. I collected all the details from Bob and prepared copies for Sandy, her parents, Richard's wife Connie, and my own parents. I made sure everyone except my parents received their copies on Christmas Eve. Danny and I decorated the tree and arranged the gifts underneath. Since I discovered Sandy's affair with her unpleasant boss, I had been distant. By this point, she might have suspected that I was aware of the affair or at least sensed that something was wrong. I had a small bag packed with clothes and a copy of Bob's report in the trunk of my car, ready for December 24th. Steve, you've been distant all week. Are you okay? Is there something you need to discuss? Sandy inquired. It was time for the crucial moment. Yes, Sandy. There is something we need to talk about, but I'd rather not spoil Christmas for Danny. Let's talk after the holidays, I proposed. Well, we could still have some fun tonight. It's been quite a while, she suggested, starting to unbutton her shirt. That's when I decided to confront the situation directly. Is Richard too busy to see you tonight? I retorted and headed upstairs to the guest room. Once inside, I closed and locked the door behind me. I could barely hear her knocking and pleading from the other side. Steve, we really need to talk. Can you open the door, please? But facing a horde of bikers seemed more appealing to me at that moment. As I lay in bed, attempting to fall asleep, I eventually managed to doze off. I woke up just after 7 a.m. The next morning, got out of bed, showered, shaved, and prepared myself for what I anticipated would be an extremely busy day. I knew I would need a lot of coffee to make it through the upcoming 24 hours. By 9 a.m., Danny was already engrossed in cartoons, and Sandy was heading to the kitchen. Her swollen eyes revealed a sleepless night, indicating that she had a rough time. My concern for her disappeared, and my sole focus was getting to 2 p.m., when I would begin executing my plan. When did you find out? She eventually asked. Does it even matter now, Sandy? I replied. Is there anything I can say? She continued. What could you say? That it meant nothing, that you don't love him, only me, and that it was all a big mistake? Sure, you could say that, and maybe more, but it wouldn't change how I feel now. I'm taking Danny to my parents' place this afternoon, and I don't want you there. You're no longer part of this family. I hope he was worth it, Sandy, because from my perspective, he wasn't, I coldly stated as I prepared to leave with Danny. After loading the car with presents and dressing Danny, I instructed him to say goodbye to his mother, who was oblivious to what was about to happen. I had no intention of tipping her off. When will you return? She inquired. We'll be back when we're back, I vaguely answered. Do you have plans to go out? She asked. No, I'll be here, she said, still uncertain about what lay ahead. As I closed the door behind me, she was in tears. Where's Sandy? My mom asked as we entered. Do you want the short version or the full story? I responded. While my dad took Danny to the Christmas tree, I explained that Sandy wasn't there because she had been having an affair with her boss for some time. After the initial shock wore off, I informed them that Danny and I were leaving to start fresh somewhere else, and that we would be in touch once we were settled. Mom, it's better if you don't ask too many questions, I suggested. I plan to make those responsible pay dearly for their actions, targeting where it will hurt them the most. Let's enjoy this afternoon as a family since it might be a while before we see each other again. At 4 p.m., I initiated the transfer, moving all the funds from Logan's account into Si's and my shared savings account temporarily. By 6:30 p.m., Danny and I boarded the first of 3 flights out of the country. Sandy must have tried calling my cell countless times before realizing that I wasn't going to answer. I had already turned off my phone and disposed of it in a dumpster a couple of blocks away from my parents' home, just before catching our next flight. I transferred the funds from our savings into the initial overseas account. From there, the money was scheduled to be distributed among 8 other accounts by the early hours of Christmas morning. My intention was to bring joy to many children on Christmas with this gesture. Glancing at my watch, I could only imagine the astonishment on people's faces as my planned surprises were revealed on Christmas Eve. According to Bob's findings, Connie ended up kicking her husband so forcefully upon discovering the revelations that he required medical assistance. Si's parents were equally disheartened by their present and didn't hesitate to express their disappointment in her choices. By the time Sandy realized that we weren't coming back, she had received a package containing photos, recordings, and a letter from me. The letter detailed how I had uncovered her betrayal and stated my inability to forgive her. You don't deserve mine or Danny's love, so you won't have it from this day forward. The house and everything in it are yours to do with as you wish. Danny and I will be starting a new life without you, and I only hope that one day I'll find it in my heart to forgive you. But I don't see that day coming anytime soon, I told her. By the way, since the two of you initiated your unholy union under the pretense of donating money to good causes, I've decided to assist you. The $1.02 million from your Bank of America account has been donated in the name of Logan Industries to 8 children's hospitals and countries in need. I've arranged for these organizations to express their gratitude to Logan Industries exactly 1 year from now. Feel free to inform Richard. I hope he enjoys the consequences of your affair, as it has turned out to be his most expensive mistake. Wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'd like to say that we'll cross paths again, but that's unlikely to happen anytime soon. I'll keep Mom updated, so if you're in her good graces, perhaps she'll share updates with you. And if you decide to file for divorce, go ahead. I won't oppose it. We arrived in Panama on Christmas morning. I had arranged to rent a 2-bedroom condo near the downtown area of the capital. I managed to keep some of Logan Industries' money for our expenses. Although living here is affordable, I knew that eventually I would need to find work. Initially, Danny wondered about his mom, but he stopped asking after a few weeks. I hired an affordable and reliable nanny, and we started to feel like a family. With limited resources, I launched a software security business, avoiding major banks but gradually gaining recognition among smaller independent clients who began seeking my services. 5 years since our relocation, someone knocked on my door when I heard about a newcomer in the industry here. I figured it was you. Can I come in? He joked with a laugh. We caught up for over 2 hours before heading to dinner. As it turned out, Logan Industries wasn't pleased with the unexpected charitable donations. They ended up replacing Richard as president, and he nearly went bankrupt trying to refill the $1.02 million. After divorcing his wife, Connie, Sandy lost her job once it was discovered that the funds had passed through her account. Although an attempt was made to charge her, she was ultimately found not guilty. When I got wind of the situation, I suspected your involvement. My suspicions were confirmed when our company started losing business to a new competitor in town. Believe it or not, I received an offer from the headquarters to either buy you out or take on the position of leading the new Southern Division. As I reviewed the contract presented to me, I saw that the salary outlined was in line with US standards. This meant that with the cost of living here, I could enjoy a luxurious lifestyle while engaging in the work I excel at, with significantly less stress and oversight required on my part. He urged me to consider the proposal, mentioning that he wouldn't be returning to the US until the end of the week, giving me ample time to ponder the decision. During his stay, we indulged in the local cuisine and culture. He seemed particularly fascinated by the vibrant Latin American lifestyle and developed an interest in a local woman. When he left, he was noticeably pleased, taking with him a signed contract and a letter intended for Sandy. The letter also included photos. In the letter to Sandy, I detailed how our son has been thriving in his new environment. I explained that he's attending a reputable private school where he has become fluent in Spanish, surpassing his proficiency in English. This linguistic shift is significant considering the global importance of Spanish as a language, offering him invaluable communication skills that will serve him in countless ways as he grows. Furthermore, he has started learning Chinese, a strategic choice given that approximately a quarter of his schoolmates are of Asian descent. His expertise with computers is unmatched, suggesting that he's on a path to potentially succeed me in my business endeavors. He's aware that we are no longer together, but I haven't explained the reasons to him. He has simply adjusted to the reality that he's with me, and you're elsewhere, due to obvious reasons. I couldn't reveal where I was going to anyone. After I left, I found out that your parents moved in with you, while mine did the same with me. My mom informed me that she passed along all the updates I sent your way once she got past her initial anger. So, you're up to date on how Danny is doing. For what it's worth, I have let go of my resentment towards you. My current partner pointed out that I was holding on to too much from the past, and that it was time for me to move forward. It's unfortunate how things turned out. You would have enjoyed life here. I have no plans to return, especially since my parents are considering buying a place here to spend the winters. This leaves me with no ties back home, so if you ever want to see Danny, you'll need to travel here, at least for the foreseeable future. Mom never mentions you, and I don't ask about you, but I do hope you've managed to recover after losing your job. However, hearing about Richard's downfall did bring me a bit of satisfaction. That's pretty much everything I have to share. I hope you find someone you can be genuine with and start anew. As for me, I've met an incredible person. She has embraced Danny as if he were her own, and brought happiness back into my life, reminiscent of the joy we once shared. We're planning to get married soon, especially since Danny will have a new sister coming in the spring. I'm ready to commit once again. You're welcome to write to Danny, but this will be my last letter to you. Sandy struggled to read through my letter due to her tears. After everything that happened, she never crossed paths with Richard again. Finding a new job was challenging for her due to the fallout and negative media attention. The only men interested in her now were either not her type or only seeking a casual relationship. Currently, she is seeing a salesman from another town, but they are proceeding cautiously. She can see that Danny is thriving and appears happy. She wishes she could visit him, but financial constraints have made it difficult. After the real estate market crashed, she lost her home due to her inability to keep up with the mortgage payments. She often blames herself for falling for Richard's shallow charisma, believing that she would still have her previous life, if not for that mistake. However, she acknowledges that these thoughts of what could have been are now all that's left for her.